Hello, it is July 21st, 2026. I hope your July is going well. Mine is. Last week I promised you that I'm working on my summer reading list, my spiritual summer reading list that has so impacted me. So I'm still working on that, waiting to finish up some books, waiting for another book to come in. So I can't wait to share that with you. But we're going to continue our devotion on trust. Last week, if you missed it, go back. We talked about trusting God when we are in secular culture, which is what, every day, right? I mean, we're sort of, made and purposed to reach secular culture. So go back if you didn't see that. And then today we're going to be talking about trusting God in our relationships. Trusting God in our relationships. And we're going to be looking at two groups of people. We'll get into that in just a little bit, but I want to start with a story. Back in the 1930s, like 35 through 1955, there was a Pulitzer Prize winning columnist. His name was Bernard DeVoto. Bernard DeVoto wrote in Harper's Magazine about his drive to Maine that he made often. In his column, he complained about this drive. He said that it was overpopulated. There were all these drive-in movie theaters, souvenir shops, cheap restaurants, amusement parks. So he was not pleased with the things he saw along his drive. Later on, E.B. White wrote a book, and he commented on this column, and he also made the same drive to Maine, same highway, frequently, and he noticed birch, spruce, deer, fox along the road. And the only difference in this drive that the two men made was the reason they were going. Bernard DeVoto was going for professional engagements, work, or getting a degree, something that related to work. E.B. White was headed home. And E.B. White says, a man's destination colors the highway, enlarges or diminishes its defects. So there's a key role in our perception, and it's where you're headed. In life's journey, our destination does color the highway. Do we enlarge its defects or do we diminish its defects? And I think when we're talking about people, this is so important to remember how we perceive people. And now here are those two groups I was talking about. We all have people in our life that are in group A. Okay, we have relationships that love, accept, support. We can count on them. They make us laugh. They encourage us. They bring peace to our lives. We want to call and be around them. This is group A, okay? You can see why that's group A. On the other hand, we also have relationships and encounters with people in group B. Group B are people who discourage us, dislike us, hate us even, reject us, make us cry, are disappointed in us, or we're disappointed in them. Maybe they're just indifferent to us. They could care less if we exist or what we do. Or perhaps they're hostile to us. Group A and Group B, how do we see them? And I think a lot of that depends on where you're headed and who you've put your trust in. We have all had relationships that have gone south. And it's very difficult when that person is someone you love, right? Someone in your family who at one time you had a wonderful relationship with. Now it's gone sour, or maybe you don't have a relationship at all. I want to say this because I've had relationships like this that were loving and nice and now are non-existent. I still feel like I have a relationship with those people because of my prayer life. I still connect with them because when I connect to the Lord in prayer, I'm connecting with them. And I want to point out something that I said last week about our communication. So our communication, oftentimes, it's directional, right? Our communication to God. It comes at us from people And then we go to God and want to talk to God about those people and how they're affecting us, how they're, either we're thanking God for the way they've blessed us and what they mean to us, or we're pestering God and complaining about these people, right? Remember, an effective prayer life is directional, but it's this way. So we commune with God, and then we allow God to mediate through all of our relationships, group A or group B. Now, where am I going to go to find out how do we approach, receive, deal with group A and group B? And how do we trust God with these relationships with both groups? So when it comes to relationships, I just have to echo Job in Job 2:10 when he says to his foolish and nagging wife, "Woman, should we accept only good from God and not adversity?" To operate any other way is to enlarge the perception of group B. And then we are tainted, and our view is colored by only those in group B who we don't get along with as well, or we don't embrace as much. So there's no other place to go in the Bible but Jesus and how he dealt with group A and group B. And then we can begin to put our trust more in him. So let's tap in to trust in relationships. Here we go. Trusting Jesus with group A. And I'm giving you specific examples, mainly from John 20 and 21. So Mary Magdalene, she was devoted and sad. And by the way, we are looking into a specific time in Jesus' life, which was his persecution and death. Why? Because the way we treat people is greatly affected by the stress we're under, right? You can even treat people you love raunchy when you're under a lot of stress. So we're looking right into the heart of how did Jesus treat people when he was at his most stressful. His anxiety was heightened. Everything about him humanly said, if there was ever a time to lash out, this was it. Mary Magdalene was devoted to him, and she was very sad. And in John 20, 11 through 18, we read that she came to the grave, and what did Jesus do? He showed up. Remember the gardener? He showed up for Mary. The disciples, when they're in the upper room, he arrives. They are grief-stricken. They are confused. They're bewildered. He shows up, and he arrives and says, "Peace be with you." Doubting Thomas, what did he do for him? He showed up again, and just for Thomas, and he moves close to him and says, "If you don't believe me, just touch me, be near me." And then his disciples, after you remember he sends them, they go out to fish, they're not catching anything, and what happens? Hey, throw out on the other side of the boat. And with that direction, they have an unexpected catch, so much that they can't even bring it back in. And then they get to the shore, and what has Jesus done? Cooked them breakfast. What does he do with Peter? He forgives Peter. Jesus, in every situation, gives more than is expected. He could have given the bare minimum. He could have just given a word or a direction, but he was there. He showed up to those that he loved, and he gave them more than they ever expected. Don't forget about Jesus' own mother. On his way to the cross, he made provisions for her for after he was gone. He said, "Now John is your son. He's going to take care of you." And so Jesus, with Group A, he goes above and beyond what they ever could have, baseline needed, and he gave them more. Now, let's look at Group B, okay? The ones that are difficult to live with, the ones that we really need Jesus' direction with, and be able to put our trust in him for those relationships too. So let's start with the most stressful time of his life, the end, persecution, uh, suffering, cruelty, death, and let's see how he treated Group B. Let's start with Judas. Knowing Judas was going to betray him. You ever been betrayed before? Have you ever taken time to wash that person's feet? That's what Jesus did with Judas, knowing exactly what was going to happen. Then, with the high priest who slapped him in the face, he simply told the truth. Yet, it is as you say, I am the Son of God. Now, I've only told the truth, and I've told it in the temple, so why did you hit me? Was his response. Pilate was kind of indifferent, kind of on the fence about believing Jesus, but they definitely were not, it was not a loving, soft relationship. Pilate was sort of curious, right? He hesitated what to do with this man, because what if he is telling the truth? And then you remember his wife came and confirmed that his identity was true. And what does Jesus say to him? Does he get upset? Does he throw up some big defense? No, he says, I am the King of the Jews. Humbly he said, I'm the King of the Jews. I was born for this. And that's all he said. Then there's Barabbas. What did he do with Barabbas, a murderer? He released him. Why do I say Jesus released him? Because Jesus plainly told Pilate, you have no authority but God. You have no authority except the authority that God gives you. And so Barabbas was given authority by who? God, to be released and keep Jesus instead. The soldiers and the crowd shouting at him, mocking him, saying, if you're the Son of God, why don't you come down from your cross? And what does he say to them? Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And then the criminal beside him. He had one that believed who he was, one who just insulted him. He didn't even respond. Pretty much the same thing he did with Group A, he did with Group B. He moved closer. He forgave. He saved the criminal beside him, one of the criminals beside him. He gave them more than they could have ever expected. And how did he do that? By being less. See, in our stressful day-to-day lives and what we're dealing with, what we're doing, we still have to trust God that we can become less. We don't have to, puff ourselves up and find things wrong with what everybody else is doing and snip at everybody. We can trust Jesus that people are going to expect us to do what? Get mad, lash out, ridicule, those kind of things. But we can give them more than they could have ever expected by becoming less, by humbling ourselves before the Lord and saying, God, I'm going to trust you with this relationship. I'm going to keep my mouth shut, say very little, not just respond to those in Group A, the ones that I love. I have to do the same thing with Group B. And here's how I want to sum up today's devotion. And I know I've given you a lot of glimpses from Scripture. Mainly you can find it in John. But if I know a passage, like where did Jesus say something to the criminal on the cross? All you have to do is get your phone. That's why I didn't cite everything, because I want to give you a little trick of my own I do. I just get my phone and I, in Google, do a Google search, and that scripture will come up just like this. So if you want to go more in depth with this study, by all means, you can do that as well. We find through these passages I gave you, Jesus really was who he said he was. You can tell because no one else could have treated Group A and Group B so well so loving and so forgiving. And that's what he calls us to do. As we're headed home, and I mean to our eternal home, can we see everyone as forgiven sinners who owe their lives to the love of God? If we can begin to shape our perception of every person we encounter as forgiven sinners who owe their lives to the love of God, I believe the way we treat people is going to have a very different outcome. Because I don't know about you, but in my mind, we have group A, we have group B. I handle this group one way, I handle this group the other. That's just our human thinking. But when we look at the way Jesus treated everyone, not just those that he loved, but those who were against him, those who disappointed him, those who were indifferent to him, those who were hostile to him, he gave them more by becoming less. And they may not have seen it right away. You'll remember the soldiers at the cross, as soon as he was dead and gone, they believed because of the nature of his death. A hallmark of our faith and our trust in God is not only our relationship with Christ, but our relationship to people. How do we treat people? How we position ourselves in relationship to Christ and in relationship with others. Give them more than they expect by becoming less. Trust God with, it's okay for me not to be right. It's okay for me to, just have peace with something. Say very little. I hope this devotion has meant something to you. We all struggle with Group A and Group B, and as a Christian, what is our role? How could we possibly sincerely love Group B and be kind to Group B? You can, because Jesus saw them as someone worth saving. That's why he went to the cross. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope I've gotten you thinking about your destination. Where are you headed? And what do you see along the way? How is your highway colored based on where you are headed? Have a wonderful, wonderful day. I will see you again next week. And until then, slow down. Take the dirt road, believer.